In this episode, I talk with ATP doubles player Rajeev Ram. Rajeev is number 15 in the world in doubles right now, and last year he reached a career high of number 5. He won the 2020 Australian Open in men's doubles, and then he also the previous year won the 2019 mixed doubles crown in Australia. Back in 2016, he won the silver medal at the Rio Games with Venus Williams. And he's also reached as high as 56 in the world in singles. So he has had a very long and very successful tennis career. When I catch up with him here, he is down in Australia. He is in quarantine, and he is one of the players that is not allowed to leave his hotel room for 14 days. So he doesn't even get the 5-hour window for training that a lot of players are getting. So starting out in this conversation, I just check in with him and ask him how he's doing. How is he able to train being stuck in a hotel room 24/7? So we talk a little bit about that before diving into his career as well as a lot of double strategy. So a few things that we discuss include World Team Tennis, how he got started in tennis, his college career, advice he would have for players thinking about or trying to decide between playing in college versus going pro. We talk about a day in 2009 when he played what we believe is a record 4 ATP matches in one day. We also talk about his transition from singles to doubles. In 2016 or 17, he kind of started to transition and really focus mostly on doubles. Then we discuss game planning. So we talk about Inmatch strategy, how he and his partner, Joe Salisbury, make in-match adjustments. We talk about his biggest strength and weakness as a player, his favorite position on the court, when he and Joe like to signal versus talk about serve location and poaching and movement on the court. And then we also discuss what it's going to take for doubles to be more popular on the Pro Tour. Specifically, I ask him if he could change one thing about the Pro Tour, what would it be? And then at the very end, I ask him a few rapid fire questions like his favorite book, his favorite tournament, what singles player he would play doubles with if he could choose. And then he has a story for us at the end, as always. And before you get into the conversation, one last thing. He is, like I said, in quarantine in his hotel room, and the internet is a little bit spotty. So we've edited it as best we can, but there are some glitches in the audio that you will notice. It's not your headphones going out or anything like that. So bear with us. We did the best we could, but we definitely wanted to get this conversation to you because it's a really, really fun and insightful conversation. So without further ado, enjoy this episode with Rajeev Ram. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Today we have Rajeev Ram on. Rajeev, welcome.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I wanted to start with the whole situation in Australia. I just found out today actually that you were one of the players that are on the strict quarantine. And I spend all week, every week, working from my laptop. And sometimes towards the end of the week, I'll be like, oh, I got to go be around people. You know, I'll get a little lonely or something like that. But being in a hotel room for 14 days, like I cannot imagine what that's like. So I wanted to start by asking, like, how are you doing?
Yeah. I kind of had the same fears a bit when this whole thing started. I'm doing okay. Thanks for asking. I do appreciate that. It's definitely tricky. Funnily enough, I'm not struggling to find things to fill my day. I actually kind of developed a bit of a routine in here. But what is difficult is just like not being able to, go outside or not being able to leave this room, even though I've got a decent sized room and all that. It's just, that's the difficult part.
Sure. Yeah, I can only imagine. So where were you when you found out that you were going to be part of this strict quarantine group? Were you like on the plane or on the bus to the hotel or?
No. So our, the tests came back, we got a test done after we got to the hotel. So we were basically taken from the plane, to the bus to the hotel, and then had a test at the hotel. And that result came back a few hours later. And then a bit after that, we got an email from our flight saying there was, I think two at the time on our flight. And the health officials decided that our flight would be entirely quarantined. So it was the first day that we got here.
Mm. So you were in the hotel room?
I was in the hotel room, already did my test. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Okay. And what went through your mind when you like get that text or email or whatever?
Yeah, it was obviously a bummer. I was like, oh man, but this has kind of been the deal with throughout the whole pandemic, is that this is what they've done for all their citizens, and anyone else. We were going to get lucky and trying to get out of or get a modified quarantine, not get out of it, get a modified quarantine that we could be out for 5 hours. But I was definitely disappointed that I was going to be part of that. But my other reaction was that means that there was positive cases on our plane, and will concern more about hopefully not contracting the virus than anything else, to be honest.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you literally can't go outside, like can't even open your door to go outside the hotel room at all. It's like that.
Like I can open my door. They put little brown bags of food. Yeah, they put little brown bags of food outside the door, and I can pick that up. But I can't actually like take a step outside my door.
Okay. Gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's going as well as it can so far.
Yeah.
So what is right now? What kind of routine have you gotten into as far as like workouts and stuff like that?
Yeah, so Tennis Australia has been helpful. They've provided a bit of equipment for us. I got a bike in my room and a couple of weights and a kettlebell, and I brought some bands with me. And so I kind of try to do 2 workouts a day. I do one in the morning, just more of a mobility, activation, if you will, sort of session. And then, we usually have a couple of player calls and, do some stuff like that. And then I do a full workout in the afternoon, either, some agility stuff, some, a little biking, maybe some work with the bands, try to mix it up each day. So I kind of do 2 workouts a day that I sort of center the day around, if you will.
Got it. How long are those workouts?
Each one's about an hour, let's say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And what would it look like normally if we were not in a pandemic? What would your kind of week or 2 before the Australian Open look like?
If we were not in a pandemic, that is a great question. It feels like another life ago. So probably would have been this year, the ATP Cup would have been the normal size, which means we probably would have qualified. So would have probably, in February, in late January, we would have been at the end of the Australian Open, but let's just assume it was normal time. It would have been, the ATP Cup this week, like it was last year. And then, last year we were in Adelaide. I guess it would have probably been the same thing. So 2 warm-up tournaments. We would have already been, well into the competition of the tournaments that precede the Australian Open.
Right. Okay. And they have a few warm-up tournaments coming up, right? But are you just not allowed to play those, or?
No, I'm allowed to play them. So there's only 1 week of warm-up tournaments. So there's 3 tournaments going on in the same week. So it's the ATP Cup, which was reduced, which we didn't qualify for. The U.S. didn't qualify for. And then there's 2 250 events, which you can obviously only play one. So at this point, Joe and I are going to play one of those 2.
Okay, got it. And that's there in Melbourne at the
all it's happening in Melbourne Park, which is where the Australian Open takes place.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That makes sense. So next, I wanted to ask you about World Team Tennis. So last year I think it was the first time I had watched World Team Tennis. And obviously they did that like kind of condensed season all at the Greenbrier in West Virginia. I could not get enough of it. I was obsessed with the format and the team aspect and all that stuff. I thought it was a great event. I wanted to get your take from a player's perspective on how do you like the World Team Tennis type format compared to like the regular tour? Would you like to see more of that? Things like that.
I think tennis, when played in a team format, is the best form of the sport. Whether that's high school tennis, college tennis, Olympics, Davis Cup, Fed Cup, I think it's when the players get the most into it. I think the fans get the most into it. It's sort of the same sport, but for me, a way better atmosphere than we play with 90% of the time on tour. So I love it. Mm-hmm. I've subbed a bunch for team tennis. I played a full season for San Diego back in 2017, I think it was. And last year playing for Chicago.
What about, so one thing that I really liked about World Team Tennis was the way the sets work. So the sets are 1st to 5, tie break at 4-all. So especially for doubles, that makes so much more sense to me, because if you win up a break, you're at 5-3 and everybody's served twice, versus normally 6-4, 2 players have an extra service game. Do you like that format, or would you like to see any sort of like scoring format changes on the ATP tour?
On the main tour, I think that's a great format for the team situation, because I think it goes quickly and you kind of get from one event to the next, and everybody can play their the whole match. One team against another. All 5 events can be decided in a decent amount of time. On tour, I would actually say, what we have is fine. I wouldn't be opposed to reducing the sets to maybe, like you're saying, 1st to 4 or whatever it is, or 1st to 5, excuse me. But I think what I would get away from on tour is the sudden death deuce points. I feel like in doubles, I feel like if that happens, then I just think it would be a bit more fair if we had full scoring. Even if we had to have shorter sets, that's fine, but full scoring in the games. But I love the 10-point tiebreaker. I think that's one of the best things we have in our sport. I think it's exciting. I think the best team most oftentimes wins anyway. I think it's great.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that, I feel like most of the majors, the whole like singles debate on what's the best format. And I like I think it's the Australian Open that does the 10-point tiebreaker at 6-all or 8-all or something like that.
You mean for the singles?
Yeah, for singles.
Yeah. I think I don't know exactly this. I think it's 6-all that they decided to put in a 10-point tiebreaker in the final set of these matches. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that makes a ton of sense to me, because it removes the chance for luck that you have or at least it minimizes the chance for luck that you have in that 7-point tiebreaker, right?
Yeah, exactly. A 10-point tiebreaker is actually a lot longer than people realize, and there's a lot of things that can happen. So for us playing that as a 3rd set, I got no problem with that. I think that the sudden death deuce sometimes it takes it brings in a little bit more luck than it should.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us your story. How did you get started in tennis? I know you grew up in Indiana, I believe. Tell us your story, kind of how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, moved around a fair bit as a kid, actually. Was born in Colorado. Really shortly after, like a month after, moved to Northern California. Started my tennis there, actually, with my dad. It was just a father-son activity that we did. I played a lot of sports when I was a kid. I'm an only child, but played a lot of sports, was really active, and just took to tennis more than the others. Don't come from a tennis playing family whatsoever, but something that, my dad and I did together. And then when I was, maybe 5, 6 years old, we moved to Wisconsin. Definitely not the hotbed of tennis in America by any stretch, okay. But just all for my dad's work. And continued playing basically just with him there, along with a few others. Funnily enough, one of the others I played with a fair bit was Bethany Maddock, who also lived in Wisconsin at the time when we were kids. Cool. And then when I was about 12, we moved to Indiana again for my dad's work. And that was kind of where we settled, if you will. I was in 7th grade at the time. And yeah, pretty much have called that home since, and started to, it was around a few more good players, started to really see improvements in my game. And, it really started to become a lot more serious for me when we moved there, probably when I was around 15, 16 years old, which is actually pretty late for someone that ended up making a career out of tennis.
Okay. And then you went on to play at Illinois, right?
Yeah. Played at Illinois. By the time I got to that point, I was going to make my college decision. I was definitely going to go to college, but I was going to make the decision based on what was best for my tennis. And Illinois was easily the best option, the best team, the best coach, close to home, which was important to me because I have a great relationship with my coach, Brian Smith, back home, we started working together when I was about 15 years old, and we still do. So I wanted to be still, close to him. It's only 2 hours from Indy. And yeah, it just ticked all the boxes for me, really.
Cool. So what's your, a lot of people talk about, these players who go straight to pro versus going to college. What's your take on all that, like where it is now and where it's trending? I guess maybe a better question is, what would you tell an 18-year-old or 17-year-old who's trying to make that decision?
I would tell them, if they are basically competing, decently successfully at the challenger level at 17, 18 years old, then it's a consideration to forego college, or higher, obviously. Anything below that, though, I feel like college is a great option. And you see a lot of players that have made careers in tennis. They're definitely not like winning slam careers, but they've made really good careers for themselves in tennis. And for me, I think that a vast majority of those players, and these are I'm talking about players that went to college, a vast majority of those players would not have made careers in tennis had they not gone to college. A few examples would be like, I say that with the utmost respect, but like a Cam Norrie or a Dominic Kupfer, or even if you get a little bit better, I really think Kevin Anderson and John Isner would not have had the careers they had if they didn't go to college. So, I think, these guys are playing tennis at the highest levels, and I think that would have been not the case if they had gone straight into the pros.
So what about college do you think made their career more successful than it would have otherwise been?
I think you get the opportunity to practice, first of all, with a bunch of other really good players on a daily basis, which is huge. You just get those repetitions in that competitive environment, because at the end of the day, you don't even want to lose the people on your team, even though you are a team, and the practices are sometimes the times where you get the most benefit, which is definitely what happened to me at Illinois. And then you get a number of guaranteed matches over the course of a season. All of those being with the pressure of, not only playing for yourself, but playing for your team, which is, just like we talked about before, one of the things that makes team environment so special. And I think that's great. And then, on top of that, you get a situation where you have strength and conditioning taken care of to a certain point. You have all of those things that become very difficult on tour to do. You kind of have it catered to you. And I think it's just a great opportunity to develop as a player, to then put yourself in the position where you're actually ready to compete with the guys on the pro tour, as opposed to how you weren't as an 18-year-old.
Interesting. Okay. I'd never thought about it like that. So you just have access to, it sounds a lot more resources.
Completely. Yeah. You're
make it in challengers or futures or whatever.
Yeah. It's not just about the results. It's about the ability. Cause at that point, as an 18-year-old, you're not polished. You're not finished. You're whether you play professionally or whether you play in college, you're still trying to develop your game to try and improve, try to get to the higher levels. And so if it's a development situation for the first, let's say 3 years, your options are doing it on tour or doing it in college. And I think the much safer option, let's say, is to do it in college, because, there's always going to be the next match. There's always, and like you said, everything's going to be taken care of. Whereas in the pros, it's not the case.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So next I was reading through your Wikipedia page today, and I live in Texas. I play a lot of league and USTA tournaments here. And sometimes if we play a couple of events like men's doubles and mixed doubles, or singles and doubles, we'll have to play 4 matches in a day. And we always talk about, they never have to do that on Pro Tour. At the majors, they play every other day. At these other tournaments, they play maybe once a day or twice a day. And I'm reading through your Wikipedia page, and on July 10th, 2009, you played 4 matches in a day and won all 4 of them. So talk us through that day.
Yeah.
What was it like?
So it was at Newport. We had a bunch of rain in that earlier in the week. So that tournament couldn't start until, like, I can't remember what it was. Now it's been so long, but it was maybe the Thursday was the first day of the tournament. So we were able to get a few matches in on Thursday. And I think it was that Friday where I had to play 2 singles and 2 doubles. And I remember I ended up winning the first 3 matches, the first 2 singles and the first, the first doubles match. And I mean, I was 25 years old and I was like, they're like, look, you're on the schedule. You can play this match or you cannot. And I was, I was actually feeling, obviously if you won 3 matches, I was feeling great at the time. And I was like, you know what? If I keep going in this tournament, I want to kind of reduce the amount of matches I have on the very back end. So yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And just decided to give it a whirl and fourth one. And it obviously worked out great because I ended up winning both events that week. But I mean, that's the kinds of things you can do at 25 that I would have had no chance to do at 35.
Right. That's amazing. Is that do you know if that's like an ATP record or anything?
I don't know for sure, but I think so. I don't even know. I don't even necessarily know that people have attempted to play 4 matches. So I'm not sure,
right.
But I would think so.
It's
by my unofficial
a record for matches played and matches won in a day. So next, I wanted to ask, so you played singles a lot throughout your career, and then now you're primarily, it seems like, focused on doubles. At what point did you make that decision to transition towards really focusing just on doubles? And how did you go about that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I played singles as a priority for the first, until basically 2016. And at the end of 2016 was my last year, I would say, of prioritizing singles completely. I had played over 100 matches in that year in 2016. Had some great highs and some tough lows, but it was just a long season. And I just felt like at the end of that, I still could play at a really high level in singles, a top 100 level, but I felt like if I had another one of those seasons again, that might do it for my tennis career. Or I felt like there was a chance of that, whether it be because of injury or just because of the toll it takes. And I'd never really given doubles a full shot as far as focusing on it entirely. And I felt like if I didn't want to leave tennis without doing that, I felt like I would leave something on the table to a certain extent. So the decision was kind of staring me at the face at that point that I had to pick one or the other. And like I said, I knew I didn't want to leave that stone unturned. So decided at that offseason that the next year going forward, it would be, unless I was able to somehow pull a rabbit out of a hat and keep my singles ranking, I would play entirely a double schedule and, kind of see how it goes and play singles when it was available, but not play any extra tournaments because of my singles, not do anything like that. And so, kind of lasted about a half a year. And then I just felt like I wasn't really, if I wasn't going to put myself into it, I wasn't going to do it at all. So decided to play my last match at Newport, which is a place where I had some great memories. So.
Cool. So when you made that decision, did you have any idea on how much longer you thought at the time you'd be able to play? I mean, now we're into 2021. You just won a Grand Slam last year. I mean, it doesn't seem like you're towards the end of your career by any means.
No, I didn't really I've never really had a timeline on my tennis career. I always said that I would stop playing whether it wasn't fun anymore or where I felt like I couldn't get any better. And those two things kind of go hand in hand for me. The part that's super enjoyable for me in doing this is feeling like you can get better every day. And that hasn't happened yet. So don't really have a timeline on it, but if that were to happen at some point, then, that would be the end of it. But I feel like I still have some room to go and looking forward to, hopefully continuing on this path.
Absolutely. So next I wanted to ask you about doubles partners. So you've played with a number of different partners in your career. How do you decide who to play with? I know you and Joe are playing again together this year, it seems like, which for 2 straight years, I feel like that's kind of uncommon today, but I don't know. What do you think? How do you decide on choosing a partner and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I know I've played with a lot of people in my career, but most of them have been when I was playing singles. And when I was playing singles, it was sort of like, okay, yeah, who wants to play this week? Let's play some dubs. Let's, and just kind of, it was definitely not the priority, right? So it was sort of a secondary thought when it came to it, between singles and doubles. But after I started playing doubles more seriously, I've really only had 2 partners, 2 serious partners. I had Raven Clausen, who we played from 2016 and 17, a little bit in 2015 too, and then Joe. And this is going to be our 3rd year together. We played 2 seasons together, so this is going to be our 3rd season together. But I really feel like chemistry and getting along with the person and sort of being able to have something of a relationship off the court. I just think it makes it so much better because, when you get to these, ends of these big tournaments and these big matches, I mean, everybody plays pretty well, but it's kind of the team that sticks together the best and sort of, gels the best. They seem to, tip the scale in their favor a little bit. And I think that's really important. So, the first thing for me is before all the X's and O's of forehands and backhands is, do I get along with the person? Are we compatible? Do we have that chemistry? And then you can start talking about sort of, okay, how does your game style match up with mine and all that stuff,
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. So how big of an advantage do you feel like that is for y'all? I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but it does seem like going into like a third season with the same partner is becoming a little more rare on the doubles scene. But I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, it is. It always surprises me when some of the teams you hear that they're splitting at the end of the season for whatever reason. It just, I find it a little surprising, but, to each his own. But I'd like to think it is. I don't know if anyone else does, but I'd like to think that playing with the same person for, the longer you play with somebody, the more you tend to grow and the more you tend to figure things out and be a bit more compatible, if you will, or, you gel a little bit better. So I think it is an advantage for sure, especially in situations like we're in right now. I mean, I'm in a hotel room. Joe's actually getting to practice, but if we were a new pair and we had to go straight away and play, one tournament in the Australian Open, I think it would be really tough. But I don't think either one of us is freaking out too much about that situation because we have so many hours of playing together, already.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's see. So walk us through your kind of pre-match preparation. So let's say you're playing like a quarterfinal or semifinal at the Australian Open, what does the 24 hours leading up to that match look like?
It kind of depends, obviously. I mean, sometimes you have a match the day before, you have to play consecutive days, and then it's like, just it's all about recovery and it's all about just getting prepared and all that. But sometimes maybe you have a day off and you have some time to think. So it really depends on the situation. But if there is that day off, I think a lot of it is we come into these big tournaments trying to feel like we've already done the work and we've already prepared for ourselves for those situations. So if you're I think that the team or the player that is able to keep it the most simple and stick to their guns and believe in what they're doing is the team that gives himself the best, or the team or player that gives himself the best chance. So, I mean, if we're in that position, we're obviously playing well there, whoever we're going to play against is playing well. And I think it's really all about just trying to, be at your best and both, mentally, physically, and gives you the best chance to execute well. Cause that's usually what it comes down to in a situation like, where you're at the end of a major.
Sure. So what is the kind of the game planning process look like for you and Joe? Like if you're about to play a particular team, do y'all like sit down the night before and say like, okay, here's who we're playing, we've got this scouting report on them, or do y'all mostly just focus on your side of the net, which you can control? Talk me through kind of planning for a particular team.
Yeah, this is where everybody's different, right? Some people like to go in with more information. Some people like to go with less. And in our particular case, Joe probably likes a little bit more information than me. It doesn't mean that I don't like any, but he probably likes a little bit more. And so it depends on the timing. But if it is the night before, we will sit down and talk quite a lot about, okay, what do they do? What, our opponents, I mean, as far as their maybe tendencies and their sort of strategy and their game styles and how we can, implement what we do against them. And then, he might do an extra session with our coach that I won't be a part of, just if he wants a little bit more information and whatnot. But, if you're talking about the bigger matches, a lot of times we played a lot of these teams, many times. So there's not a whole lot of surprises, but it's still good to go over that information. And then the day of, we usually do quite a lot of just talking about ourselves and our execution and what we need to do to play at our best. So it's like, the stuff about our opponents is in the back of our minds for sure. No question, because we went over it the day before, but the day of is more about what we do as a team and what we do well and sort of how we would want the match to look like on our end.
Got it. So what does that look like? Do y'all have like a notebook with notes on every team, or do y'all look at film, or what specifically Or
Yeah,
you
a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything. I mean, I don't personally have a notebook. I honestly don't know if Joe does or not, but Rob, our coach, definitely does, and he keeps various notes on teams. And yeah, you know, we have access to, you know, the film that most other people do anyway. But you know, if there is a situation where we can get a match or something of another team that we're going to play against, that we would watch it. But again, that's sort of also where our coaches help out, is maybe they would watch the match and pick out a few things that they think are important to relay to us. So, you know, we don't have to watch the match, and it's not really a matter of time, but it's just a matter of, you can kind of get overclouded with information and be a bit, you know, a bit unclear. So I think we leave most of the video watching, at least I do, up to our coach and, you know, and Joe, if he wants to do it. But again, that's where people are different, right? I don't like to watch video of a team that we have to play. I'd rather just kind of know the information and be shown small clips, if you will. And maybe some other people like to watch, you know, matches upon matches of teams that they have to play. So that's how we go about it.
Interesting. So why don't you like to watch the match video? That's interesting to me.
I feel like for me, you know, if I kind of, if I have too much information, I could kind of get a little bit, a bit cloudy and a bit unclear as to what I want to try and do out there, what I think might happen. I think I'm at my best sometimes when I have an idea, and I have an idea of tendencies, but I still react to the situation that's presented in front of me a bit more. So doesn't mean I don't want any information, but it means that I want a little bit of room to use my own instincts and my own intuition and my own feel out there. And I feel like sometimes if I have too much information, that gets a little bit tougher for me to do. Okay,
that makes sense. Got it. So what about during a match? So let's say y'all have gone through your game planning, you have practice the morning of the match, then you're out there, and let's say things like kind of aren't going your way. How do y'all go about making those in-match adjustments?
Well, one of the things I think we do pretty well, and it's just happened over the years of 2 years playing together, is we do communicate pretty well. Mm-hmm. If somebody feels something, if somebody notices something, we just we say it. We don't hold back, whether it's right, wrong, or otherwise. We kind of put it out there, and so I think that's one of the things that maybe allows us to also navigate our way through a situation that maybe is not happening like we thought, and make in-match adjustments. I guess for us, the way that we would deal with making an in-match adjustment is really by basically communicating. If one of us feels something or sees something, we have to say it. And that's how we discuss it, right, wrong, or otherwise. We discuss it, and we come up with a way to deal with whatever the situation is. But if you don't say it, if somebody's noticing something and they don't say it, and the other person may not notice it at all, and you might go a whole match and not make an adjustment, and therefore lose an opportunity. And so we've had that happen for sure before, and we've kind of made it a point, for that, to try and mitigate that as much as possible, because I feel like where there's two of us out there, we trust ourselves to see most things and make adjustments, and between the two of us, we should be able to come up with it. And but it's just about kind of communicating that to the other person, and coming up with a plan.
So what's an example of a match where y'all were doing that? Maybe you were like down a break in the first set or something, and you notice something and you make an adjustment, and then it works out in your favor. Any particular matches come to mind?
That's a good question. An example of that. Let me think if one pops out. I can't really say an example of, I can't think of one exactly of an example of playing other opponents and changing a strategy per se, but there's been many examples of one of us not feeling great on the court and relaying that, and then coming up to deal with that. For example, there was one match, I think it was second round of the French Open this year. The French Open was really weird. It was played in September. It was freezing cold. It was raining most of the days, and I don't do so well in cold weather. I just it's not my favorite. And so I remember going out there, and I missed a couple of volleys, and I was like, man, Joe, I'm just not feeling it. Like the ball feels terrible on my racket. I said something to him, and it just, even saying that made me feel like at least I'm not just nervous now about missing shots. And he was just like, okay, that's fine. Maybe do something to try and warm yourself up a little bit more, or jump around a little bit. Gave me a couple of just small little things that I can do to kind of get myself going and into the match. And, it really helped me. Or, I just said, I'm going to not be maybe as, energetic in the points because I'm just not feeling it. I got to kind of warm up to the situation a little bit. And, if I just don't say anything and I kind of go into my shell, he's going to think I'm having a bad day and whatever else. But if I communicate that to him, then he can maybe take over the load, if you will, a little bit. And we got through that match quite comfortably, no issues. But if I don't say that, who knows, maybe he
Right.
gets annoyed that he feels like I'm not into it, which is totally not the case. But, he would have no way of knowing that if I didn't say something to him. And he's done that to me plenty of times too. The same way, where he's not feeling it on a day and I have to take over the load, and we get through it, and that's fine,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great example. I see, yeah, most of, I guess I hadn't talked about this, but most of the listeners are like USTA league and tournament players and stuff like that. And I'll sit there and watch matches all the time where like one player will I can tell they're angry at their opponent, and their opponent might, just like in your case there, like might just be not feeling it that day, And if they don't
Yeah,
say anything, then there can definitely be some friction, and it can kind of turn the wrong way fast.
for sure. I don't think that is subject to playing at our level. I think that kind of thing works at every level of tennis, whether it's a club match or a Grand Slam match. I mean, if you're not feeling it, you tell your partner you're not feeling it, and then you guys can figure out a way to deal with it together, as opposed to maybe them, maybe you not saying it causing some friction.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. So what about, so you couldn't think of a particular match where you made a strategic adjustment, but what's an example of a strategic adjustment you might make? So like, what's something you would notice? Like, is it something on the return, or something about their positioning, or something about a particular player? And then you communicate
Oh
that to
yeah,
the other.
it could really be anything. It could be all of the above. It could be, okay, this guy, we thought he's going to serve more to my backhand, but he's really serving to my forehand. So, maybe I'm receiving that and I'm not noticing it, or I'm not, able to make the correct the adjustment to shift my position. And Joe's like, hey, listen, he's gone to your forehand 6 times in a row. Like, take that away, Okay, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. Or, maybe, hey, listen, we said we're going to serve T, but he's really sitting on that one. So let's change it up and serve over here. Or, those are, tech or, tennis things, if you will. But then you could be like, same token, like, hey, he looks a little down today, or he looks a little bit, frustrated. Let's sort of maybe, pick on him a little bit more, in the sense of, make him play a bit more if that person is particularly, you feel like, oh, they're not feeling it today. So that kind of thing too. It's, you look at the emotional side of it. Maybe he's not as energetic for whatever reason, and you try and take advantage of any of those little things that you see. So it could be any of, or all of those things.
Sure. Yeah. That's, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it serves, returns, volleys, the whole thing. That makes a lot of sense. So let's get into a little bit more strategy. What would you say is your biggest strength as a doubles player?
I think it's a good question. I think I'm actually I'm easy to get along with on the court. And I think I always want to try and get better. So I think, I make a decent partner for a lot of people if that's what they're looking for. Like I'll always look to try and improve and do things to try and progress the team. From an actual tennis standpoint, I think I got a pretty good serve, and I help out quite well as a service partner at the net. So I think if my partner also serves pretty well, I think we can make a pretty difficult duo to break. And I think if you hold serve consistently, then that usually means you can put yourself in a position to win a lot of matches. So that's sort of what I try and look for in a partner, is similar characteristics. In that, I think I like to make it so we're a great serving team, and then we kind of build the rest around that.
So how do you think about serve strategy? Do you, a lot of people have a philosophy of, I'm going to focus on my serving strengths. A lot of people say I want to serve to their weakness. How do you think about that, using different formations, things like that?
Yeah, that kind of depends also on conditions. Like if I'm playing on a super fast court, maybe I'll, or a low bouncing court, maybe I'll hit a few more sliders. If it's a clay court or a high bouncing court, maybe a few more kick serves or whatever. But for me, I think it's about variety. It's about disguise. I don't hit the serve the absolute hardest of anybody, so I've found ways to manage my serve, make it difficult to read or make it difficult to return by disguise and mixing it up really. So I think it's an important thing for me to not be predictable. I think that's one thing that is a constant staple, I guess, if you will, is that I don't want to be predictable out there.
Sure. What about serving formations? How often are y'all using different formations, and what kind of dictates that decision to go, into an I formation versus a conventional?
It's kind of the same thing. I mean, we definitely try and mix it up a little bit so we keep our opponents on our toes, and that's an important part of it. And then this is a part of that clarity and communication. If somebody feels like, hey, listen, this is really working, let's use this on big points, or let's use this a bit more or whatever, then you kind of maybe gravitate towards that particular formation, whether it be I or regular or anything like that. But I think as a general basis, we try and mix it up from the go, is that we don't play an overload of one formation or one play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't let the returner get into a rhythm. So what's your biggest weakness as a doubles player, and how do you think about kind of trying to mitigate that?
Probably my biggest weakness, it was the case in tennis in general and in doubles. Well, two things. One, probably my backhand side has never been my strength, I'll say. So in doubles, as I did in singles, I just try not to hit as many of them. If you watch us play, I'll hit a backhand on the return if I need to, but then I try and park myself over in the alley and basically hit forehands if it's a matter of hitting more ground strokes. And which is a similar play to what I did in singles. I would try and set up every point so I can, reduce the chances of a player, attacking my backhand. And then the other thing is probably my athleticism. I mean, I'm tall and I have good reach, but I'm not the quickest person out there. And I think that was always a thing I had to sort of consider in singles and in doubles. The great thing is you have a partner that can maybe fill up some of those weak points. And my partner for me is probably the best athlete we have in doubles. And I think, he's able to cover up some of the weaknesses and athleticism that I bring because of his superior athleticism. So, he's, if you watch us play, he's all over the place. He's, creating issues for the other team by just how fast he moves and how high he can jump and all that kind of stuff. So
what's your favorite position on the doubles court?
Like, what do you mean?
Like server's partner, returner's partner.
Like that. I would say being the server or being the server's partner are my two favorites.
Okay. Got it. So you like to be on offense there.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've kind of based the game around, holding serve, whether it's serving myself or helping my partner hold serve. And I feel like I do that pretty well.
Do you prefer to signal or talk when you're calling, like serve location and poaching and things like that?
It kind of depends. With Joe and I think we mostly talk. But, if we feel like the momentum's on our side and we kind of want to keep running with it, then maybe, we won't talk and we'll just run up to the net and make a signal. And, you kind of get, take time away from the opponents, make them feel like it's coming at them quickly and, try and take advantage of it. Or maybe, you say something, but then, when the partner goes up to the net, all of a sudden he sees, this person's changed their returning position. So let's maybe change up the play. So I'd say we start more by talking, but are not afraid to go to signals if we need to. Sort of like in football, like people probably call plays, but they're not afraid to go to like a hurry up offense if necessary.
Right. Yeah. What advice would you give yourself, let's say 10 or 15 years ago when you were on tour, if you could go back and talk to Rajeev Ram of 2005, 2010, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say, well, one thing is I was very reluctant to sort of mess with equipment for a long time. And like the game kind of gravitated towards, you know, bigger, bigger, more powerful rackets and different strings, and playing with a really small-headed racket with a thin frame, and all that. And I kind of, had a fair bit of success as a junior, and I kind of developed my game around playing, with that kind of equipment. And, I would have given myself the advice to really look and see if there is a racket out there, or some kind of setup that could still allow me to play the way that I like to play and what comes naturally to me, but just help myself a little bit more. And I was able to find one in about 2015, but I wish I would have done a little bit, a bit more research and looked into it a bit more in the years you're talking about.
Sure. So you play with the Pure Drive, is that right?
I play with the Pure Arrow.
Okay. And what's your setup with that? Do you add weight to it? What kind of strings?
Yeah, there's a bit of weight to it. I don't exactly know what the exact number is. The guys that do it for me at P1 do a great job, and I've worked with them for many years now. But I use natural gut in the mains and in the crosses. And the racket itself is just one of the few that I found where power and new technology that is great, but it still has that sort of old school feel that really feels good to me and feels natural to me.
What did you say you use in the crosses? You cut out there for a second.
Solinco Tourbite Rough in the crosses.
Okay, got it. Okay, so a couple more questions here, and then we'll get into some rapid fire.
Sure.
If you could change one thing about the Pro Tour, what would it be?
For me, I feel like we do a pretty lousy job as tennis in general of thinking about the fan. That you as a tennis fan, or me as a tennis fan, would go to a tennis tournament, and I can only get into a stadium that I bought a ticket for on odd games. I only have 90 seconds to do it, and then I have to sit down. Then I have to, basically wait for another, in the first game, before the first game, you have to wait 3 games because there's not an actual changeover after one game. I mean, that's ridiculous, think that, you can't freely, move around and go get a drink or go get some food if you want. Like if you go to a basketball game, soccer games in Europe and whatever else, or you go to a football game, I mean, it's a whole experience, right? You can go and you can get your food, you can get your drinks, you can come and you can watch, and you can kind of go and come as you please. I know tennis is a little different. Obviously we have to we can't maybe make it as, free flowing as those, but I think there's gotta be a better way than what we give the experience that we give to fans right now. Like you got to really love tennis to come to a tennis tournament. And I think we're losing some casual sports fans because of these rules.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think for the next gen, weren't they experimenting with letting people in like the side in between games and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't say that for sure. I don't know, but I know we talked about it in doubles, and we've had the same situation be where, you can come in on the sides. And I think it's great. And I think if the players knew that was the case, I think a lot of people would be okay with it. I just think that it should be implemented a bit more.
Yeah. Do you feel like most players are in agreement with you? I mean, I know I see, when I'm watching some of the singles players on TV, there will be like one person in the 60th row in Arthur Ashe that, I would never see, and they won't even serve. So do you feel like most players are in alignment there? Or?
See, I don't know. I really don't know. I can't say that I've asked a whole lot of people about it, but I will say that I am probably one of those players who would see somebody in the 60th row and tell them to sit down. And it's basically because I know they're not supposed to be moving. But if I knew that they were okay to move and this was part of the deal, like I wouldn't have a problem with it. So it's almost like I think maybe a few players would be that way, the same way as that, we know that they're not supposed to come in and out, or there's somebody maybe not doing their job up there that's not keeping the fans coming in and out only on changeovers. But if we knew that was okay, maybe it would be, everybody would all the players would be a little bit more okay with it.
Right. Yeah. And if it was like more than one person moving, it wouldn't be as obvious, right? It would just be like part of the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's almost worse if it's one,
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely makes sense. So what's it going to take for doubles to become more popular?
I don't really know. I think,
It's a big question.
yeah, I think a lot of things, to be honest. I think perhaps more prize money would help. I'm not saying that from a greedy standpoint at all. I'm just saying that from a standpoint as if you equal out the prize money a little bit more from singles and doubles, I think perhaps then the doubles would get a little bit more validation, but chances of that happening are really slim. Um, I think I think a bit more time on big courts and whatnot. A bit better marketing from our tour could also be a big thing, and making it so where doubles guys, because I mean people are attracted, and I think people are drawn to stories, right? So if hey, listen, this is this guy's deal, this is where he came from, this is what he's done, and and if it's sort of made a bit more personal as opposed to just sort of like an opening act to singles, but you actually learn about the people that are involved a little bit, and you kind of make the guys and girls that are playing doubles a bit more in the spotlight, if you will. I think that can really help. I think that's sort of the direction that I would take first and foremost if I was in charge of that, is making the players making their stories known a bit more, and so that they're actually looked for by the fans at these tournaments.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm trying to do through this podcast, hopefully.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we all certainly appreciate,
there.
yeah, we all certainly appreciate it, because I think that's a big proponent to it. I think it's because I think there's a lot of doubles guys who have really cool stories to tell, and they've made careers for themselves in sport when they wouldn't in singles, and they've made a niche for themselves. And then the other thing is that doubles is what's played by so many recreational players that it seems like that would be a natural connection that a lot of fans would have with pro tennis.
Right. Yeah. It's it seems like maybe not untapped market, but like there's more potential there for sure.
Yep.
So let's get into some rapid fire. So pick a singles player on tour that you would want to play doubles with.
Pick a singles player on tour that I would want to play doubles with. For the men, tough to say anyone other than Roger Federer, someone that I've seen for years and years, and obviously appreciated everything that he's done. And for the women, I'd love to play mixed with Serena. I've gotten to play with Venus, obviously, and I think Serena's just legend of the game, and would be pretty cool.
Right. Well, which of the kind of top singles players do you feel like, do you know or feel like would be really good at doubles if they focused on that?
I think I've never played Roger before. He's won a gold medal with Stan, so obviously he would be great. I think Rafa has shown over and over. He's also won a gold medal. So I think those two come to mind straight out of the gates. And then as far as anyone else, maybe over the years, I would say Leighton Hewitt was another one that had a lot of double success, and was obviously a top singles player. He was a little bit earlier, obviously, back in the day, but I felt like I've played him quite a few times. I always felt like he was really good at doubles. He had such a good return of serve, and really, really handy at the net too.
What's your favorite tennis book?
I've always enjoyed reading. Tennis has always been something I've looked up to tennis players. I'm a fan of the game, so I was reading the stories about the other players, and I've been lucky enough to know some of them quite well. So my two would be Andre Agassi's book, even though I don't have an incredibly personal relationship with him. But his book was really cool to listen to his story. And then the other one was James Blake, who I consider a friend, and kind of knew everything he had gone through, and then just for him to put pen to paper and tell his story was pretty awesome. So those two stand out for me.
Awesome. What is your favorite non-tennis book?
A favorite non-tennis book? Again, I enjoy reading about people that have done great things, and whether it's in the world of sports or not. So one that comes to mind quickly is A Walk to Freedom, the Nelson Mandela book. Read a couple great books on Tiger Woods, who's another one that I look up to in sport. That's the one that comes up to real quick. I've just been recommended the Barack Obama book, so probably will get my hands on that when I get out of quarantine. But that probably would have been good to have in quarantine, to be honest. But that would be another one I'd look forward to reading.
Right. Awesome. What's your favorite tournament to play in?
For all the years that I played at Newport, that would have been it. Just had a lot of success. Yeah, it's such a cool thing. Again, being a fan of the game, getting to see the Hall of Fame induction on the weekend. These are people that are getting into the Hall of Fame that are my heroes. So that was really cool. Now I haven't been to Newport in a few years, but playing the Tour Finals in London and hopefully this year in Turin, it's like nothing else. We get to play in such a massive arena like that, which is not normal for tennis players. So that would be it for me.
What about Grand Slam? What's your favorite Grand Slam to play in?
They all have their special charm.
Yeah.
For me, the U.S. Open's our home slam. Wimbledon's where tennis started. Honestly, if I'm being totally honest, I probably look forward to this Australia trip the most. It's great weather. The people are so friendly, and my college coach is a tournament director, which never hurts to have a little inside help there sometimes. So they've done such a nice job here of making it player friendly in Australia. So I'd have to say that as a player, this one's my favorite.
Yeah. I went for the first time last year, and I remember getting on the flight back to the States, sitting there with my friend who I went with, and I said, I don't think I'll ever miss another Australian Open. And little did I know.
Really?
21. Yeah. I was totally sold on the Australian Open. It was such a good fan experience. Obviously, like working in the industry, I can kind of justify making the trip every year. So it's kind of
it's unbelievable. I mean, it's close to the city. You can walk to everything. It really is. They do a great job here.
Yeah, I was super impressed. So I'll definitely be back next year, assuming everything kind of calms down.
Yeah, nice.
So what is a tennis story that you've never told anyone, or just your favorite tennis story, if you want to go that route?
Well, this is probably going to be it. Not that I've never told anyone, but the fact that I had to be in quarantine. This whole last year could be a story in itself. I mean, Joe and I were we're in the same situation before the O2. He was considered a close contact, and he had 14 days of isolation before we played in London. We got pulled out of the Paris Masters, so we're kind of pros at this quarantine thing. Interesting question. This one time when I first started playing back I played a challenger in Korea, and I was flying home and got on the flight. I don't know how long it was. Maybe it was a 10-hour flight flying back to California, let's say. And we had like 6-7 hours into it. And then just didn't feel like anything was happening. It felt like we were still going at the same speed and the same thing. It felt like, geez, about time to be landing. Still not happening. So it was like 12 hours later. I'm like, okay, something's really, really off here. And it turned out that there was somebody on the flight or for some reason they couldn't land in America. They couldn't land in Mexico, flipped the plane around, went all the way back to Japan. We got like 3/4 of the way to America from Korea, and we flipped the plane around, went all the way back to Japan because of some reason they had to clear some paperwork up, something, took us off the plane, boarded it 3 hours later, gave us like a piece of bread to eat, back on the 10-hour flight back to America. And it was like, it took me like 20 hours to get home from Asia when it should have only taken 10. So that was pretty nuts.
That's a tough one. Yeah. I had,
yeah.
Nick Monroe was on a few months ago, and he had a story of a challenger that he played in Africa, and he was actually shot at when he was in a car. On this tournament. Yeah, he had an amazing story for that one. So,
wow. So no, that's not happening to me.
Any final requests for the audience, for anybody listening?
Well, no, I would just say, look, you kind of mentioned this on doubles, and I'm assuming a lot of these people that listen to the podcast are doubles people and players, and, come out, watch our matches. And, I think we as a group are generally, more friendly and more approachable than some of the the other players. Not that they're not friendly, but we're a bit more approachable. And if you have any questions, if you have any like thoughts, some interaction, we love it. We love the support, and we all enjoy attempting to grow the game of doubles that we play. And I think, come out and watch us, and don't be afraid to see if you can ask a question to somebody or start a conversation, because I think you'll find that most of us we enjoy that, and we enjoy sort of promoting our side of the sport quite a lot.
Awesome. Great. Well, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for coming on, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
If you want to become a smarter doubles player and start winning more matches, then join the Tennis Tribe Doubles Strategy newsletter. Every single Thursday, I'll send you a new doubles tip or tactic that you can use in your very next match. And when you join, you're going to get a free guide on how to play with more confidence and start dominating at the net in doubles. My name's Will. I'm the founder of the Tennis Tribe, and over the last 5 years, I've worked with players at every level of the game, from USTA 3.0 players all the way to Division I college programs, as well as some of the top 10 doubles players in the world. And on Thursdays, with this strategy newsletter, I share that knowledge and advice that I've gained over the years with you. So to sign up, you can go to thetennistribe.com. And again, you'll get that free net play guide when you join.